Wow, man, this is exciting. Scott from Riftbox, really, really cool products, especially for someone like me who's outdoorsy. He's got some really cool stuff in his product catalog.
Yeah, and his products seem so technically unattainable to me. Like some of the stuff that he's designed with his team, like innovative face masks and creative patents and design patents and utility patents, and he's not a guy that slaps a label on anything. Everything is
Yeah,
designed.
totally. And the thing that I think is most interesting about his story, which I'm looking forward to interviewing him here in a second, but like the thing I find most interesting about his story is, you look at his products. He talks about the innovation. He talks about how they're unique, and they are, but it's really the process that he goes through. It's the mentality, it's the methodology, it's the way that he looks at the tools in his toolkit to get the right information to make the right decision. And I think that's applicable to all sellers, right? It's not just a Scott thing.
No, it's not just the Scott thing at all. Scott's just really freaking good at it. So, without further ado, let's chat with Scott Thomas
Yeah,
from Riftbox.
let's do it.
Hello, Scott. Welcome aboard.
Hello, Ian. Nice to see you again. Drew, nice to see you as well.
Yeah, you too, Scott. How have things been, man?
Very busy, crazy as usual. Amazon is a never-ending challenge, so we're always adapting to what their needs are to fit our goals and what we're trying to do. So any Amazon seller will tell you it's never dull.
I love it. Amazon, the word Amazon is a marketplace, and it's an adjective and a verb.
Yes, it is, and most of the time, it's the bad thing.
Right, exactly.
I want to introduce you by your products, because Scott, your product design is legendary, and I'd like to show a few of your brands and your products, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I really feel like what you've done is very difficult for most people to even attempt to do, but it's inspiring. And so Riftbox is the parent brand, and Wildhorn, which you see in the back of Scott's background, is a awesome snow accessory. And what would you call
Sports,
this?
yeah. It's a mountain sports
Mountain
brand. So
sports, mountain
ski,
sports brand.
snowboard, mountain bike.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you look at our website, this is all of our snow stuff.
yeah.
And we have everything. Most everything is in house for us, including creative and video and product design. We have all of that in house. And so, yeah, and then on the CV side, you see our V3 snorkel mask,
Yep.
which we're just going to launch. They just came in actually to Amazon last night, and we're so sooner than expected.
Hey, that's exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, so we're really excited about that. It's been about a 2-year process for that. So
I want to dive into that, a 2-year process. So like most people don't have the wherewithal, logistics, mindset to go 2 years to design a product. How in the hell do you guys start with designing a product to completing and actually launching it?
yeah, so in the case of Seaview, we started out with a private label product, and in 2015 we were the first company to bring those in, and there was one other company doing it in Europe, but they had not entered into the US market. And I was actually in Mexico, and we were snorkeling in a cenote. And I don't know if you know what a cenote is, but they're big limestone pools where the limestone is sunk in, and there's a bunch of water, and sometimes there's cave systems, and there was a guy in there using this full face snorkel mask, and I said, hey, can I use that for a minute? And I put it on, and I was like, man, this is the best thing since sliced bread for snorkeling, because I hated having that thing in your mouth and getting water all over into your eyes and into your mouth all the time, and trying to keep the snorkel so it doesn't go into the water and all of that stuff. So I found a manufacturer in Asia that was making them, and convinced them to let us private label with our brand, because they were trying to do their Chinese brand and had no idea on how to do it. And so we brought 500 in, we sold them in 2 weeks, and we said, okay, we've got something here, but we quickly realized that this product would be commoditized quickly. And so we started out on our, and this is, we had 2 employees at this point, myself and my brother. And so we decided to jump off the product design journey. We've never designed anything in our lives. And so it took us a while to get there, but we hired the right team. We hired a really good industrial designer for our team. And we started building the V2, which you saw on the screen, which is our current mass now. And then we iterated it further to V3. So we kind of started out as private label and realized that in order to compete on Amazon, you had to have unique products with unique value propositions. And, there's some things wrong with the current snorkel masks that were being sold, and we fixed them, made them better. We have a utility patent on the side snorkel design.
That's what I was going to ask next.
Yeah, so we have protection on that, and we don't normally do a lot of design patents because they're kind of useless. Very easy to design around, but utility patents are good. And if you can get a utility patent, you have protection. So all of that time and investment that you made designing a new product is protected and won't be ripped off by China, in 2 weeks. And so, we just realized that we had to innovate, and we had to have innovative products to be able to compete with the low price sellers on Amazon. And we never compete on price. In our marketplaces, we're normally, we call ourselves a mid-premium brands. We're not an Oakley, we're not a Smith, but we offer this similar types of value to those companies with the products we build, and we use the same factories that they use and same quality and all that. But we're cutting out the middleman, as most Amazon sellers are, direct to consumer. So, anyways, that's kind of the path that started us off into product design, was realizing we needed to have unique products in order to compete, and we didn't want to compete at the low price points. So there's pros and cons to that, right? If you're not competing at the lowest price point, you don't get the same volume, but you can also command more margin dollars. And so, in terms of revenue, we're always in the top 3 in most of our categories, even though we sell less, because we can charge a higher price because of the brand and because of the product design.
I kind of liken it to, when you go to Walgreens and you see your $40 wines at the top and your $20 wines in the middle and your $10 wines at the bottom, right? Yeah, obviously, the $10 wines are getting more volume of sale, but there's still a market for each shelf.
Right.
And what I'm finding with ranking is that it's okay to be number 5.
Yeah.
It's okay because number 1 is selling for $18.
Yeah. Yep. And so we're never, not I shouldn't say never. Some products we have top ratings or top rankings, in the top 3. But we have, for example, a goggle that we sell for $99 on Amazon, and the average price is probably $27. And it's one of our better performing products, and we might only sell 3,000 or 4,000 of them, but our margins are so much better that somebody else would have to sell 3 times that amount to make the same amount of profit. And exactly. So we're kind of, that's kind of where our sweet spot is, is we're trying to find that mid-tier stuff that's higher quality, looks better, outcompetes the Chinese stuff. It's mostly Chinese, like in my category, at least, when I'm doing my research, 9 out of 10 sellers are Chinese. So, I think that might be the case for a lot of categories. So you really do have to differentiate yourself and not play the bottom of the barrel price game.
Yeah, that's really cool, Scott. I know your story too, because we talked about it when we were in New York before the new year. 2 years though is a huge design time frame, right?
Yeah.
So much can happen in 2 years for other people, and
yeah.
I think folks that are listening, they'd be curious to learn, to maybe unpack that a little bit more. Like,
yeah, sure.
Did you know it was going to be 2 years, and what really drove it?
Designing product for use in water and to adapt to many different face shapes is very, very challenging. And so it took that long because of the type of product it was. Not all products take that long. Like we launched, our one of our ski accessories. That's one of our best-selling products in our lineup, and we did that in 6 months. So there's different levels of of custom product design. You have your very complex projects like the Seaview mask, very complex, 3 different sizes. You have to have 3 different sets of molds. Your mold costs are 6 figures, and so so much can change, yes, but we also had a utility patent, and we also knew the market very well, and the market is continuing to grow. And so product design just has different timelines, and you'll run into stuff, where and it's very hard to prototype stuff that goes in water because it's not watertight. And so you're doing 3D prints and it's leaking all over the place because you can't get the right tolerances. Then you have to go to tooling, and sometimes when you go to tooling, you find problems and you have to redo your tools. It's not easy. It's very challenging, at least for this type of product. It's very challenging. Others, not so much, like ski goggles, not very complicated, and we can do those in 6 months. So custom products range in complexity from 3 to 6 months to 12 to 24 months. And so it just all depends on the complexity of the project you're working on. And so one way we do it too is we work with factories on the design for manufacturing side. And so we're doing all of the creative ID in Utah, and letting our factories help us with all the engineering, which is good and bad. It's more cost effective, but it also can take longer back and forth going to the factory. And the first one we made, I think was 18 months, and this one was a little bit longer because we had some tooling challenges. So really that we were about 6 months overdue on this product. It is a very big barrier to entry. It's not an easy product to copy like ours, especially with the intellectual property we have on it.
Right.
So it's just, it's fundamental in our business to be able to, have these types of products, but we've also had a lot of luck with what we call PL Plus, which is a product we find off the shelf and we're able to make modifications to it and make it our own. And that can cut down the design process quite a bit and still give you, a better than private label product. So, we can take something like, for example, if you look at our mountain bike helmet, that was a pre-existing product that our manufacturer had available, but it looked like crap. And my designer took it and we made modifications to the mold and actually made it a really killer mountain bike helmet out of it. So stuff like that can also speed up the design process as well. If you can find, products that your manufacturer has that maybe doesn't fit your brand or doesn't fit exactly what you need, but you can modify the tooling to make it work. Yeah, so this is our Corvair mountain bike helmet, and it looks nothing like the original product we started with. It's basically, it looks nothing like it. So there's a lot of things we could do to the tooling to make it our own. And so, there's just product design has a lot of different levels to it.
You mentioned, Scott, just even 6 months, right? If you're a seller with 5, 10 products in your catalog and you're looking at trying to find expansion and growth, and you want to expand your catalog to do that, those are still pretty hefty lead times. You got the lead time, you've got the investment and everything that goes into actually designing and the manufacturing. Then you got to buy the inventory, and then you're launching, right? Like you still don't know.
Yep.
You mentioned before V3 on your full face mask there that you measure the markets and you knew it was growing. How do you guys do that? How do you guys end up identifying market growth? Like where do you get your data from? Where are you getting your insights from?
Yeah, so we mostly use Data Dive now. It's probably the best tool in the industry by far. And so we use Data Dive plus a lot of our own custom tools that we've built. And so we pull in information from a lot of different softwares, and we build what are called master keyword lists for each product. And so we bring in stuff like historical sales, that we get from brand analytics. We bring in stuff like conversion rate by keyword, so we know which keywords have the highest conversion rates, and this is all from Amazon's brand analytics. But we use Data Rova to bring in some of the stuff into our Google Sheets.
How do you pronounce that or spell that?
Data Rova.
ROVA?
ROVA. Yeah. It's a guy in MDS that owns it, and it's a real nice tool for tracking, ranking, and we export all of our organic ranks into our sheets. So one thing we like to do is say, okay, where was this product ranked in January of last year, because we're seasonal, and where are we ranked now? And it allows us to really measure where we sit organically on our rankings historically. And we use this all with Google Sheets. And so it's not just one source of data. We're pulling in a lot of different sources of data to look at before we make product decisions. And we have a brand, and so we know what will fit and what won't fit within the brand. And so if we want to build another ski goggle, well, we know that market already. We know how much volume is there in the winter, and we can build the product to a specific need within that ski goggle market.
That's awesome. Cool. And I want to give a quick shout out to Data Dive, because you're not the first person on our podcast to bring it up. This is datadive.tools. Just wanted to make sure that people had that URL, because it is an industry standard in keyword research.
Yeah, it's very, very good, and the suite of tools they offer for listing building and making sure that your listings are optimized with the right keywords in the right places, very beneficial. Another tool that we use that I really like is IntelliV for polling, and they have a new image stack poll that is very insightful, and so we're running all of our image stacks through that polling, and it will actually tell you which images are connecting with not with your customers, but the people who are polling. And I can, Ian, if you want, I can actually share a screen and show you some of the polling we've done for this new V3 maps.
Absolutely.
So this is called an image stack poll, and so I have brought in all of my images here, and and set in my top two competitors, I pulled in images here. And basically what you can do is you can choose which image stack. So I'm choosing my image stack right now. And each image, it'll tell you positive and negative. So what the polling is doing is asking people which image was most effective and which image was not. And so you see I have 11 positive votes here, only 1 negative, so that image is good. This chart, we were interested in how people would react to it, and it comes down to two different types of people who just like to read or look at pictures, and people that like to look at data. And so we got 6 positive votes and 8 negative votes on that one, so we decided we needed it to be more all-inclusive, so we're redoing this image. This image here, we got 12 positive votes, 2 negative. So this is a really good image. This one got 0 votes and 6 negative. So this does not have a lot of value to people. And so we are going to fix that. Same with this one. People didn't really like this one. One positive, 5 negative. And then you have all of the comments down here. And you can see that we won overall 52 to 31%. And so even without making any changes, we're winning the battle of the images.
And winning versus who? Just a random competitor you found?
These are the top 2 sellers on Amazon. So I wanted to compare to the best selling products. And you can
really smart.
You can go to, hey, I just want to see female, and I want to see the results on just female voters because I set this up 50-50 male female, where we still win, but look how much closer these guys are, 38% to 41%. And then if I go to male, you know, I have 63% to 24%. And so it's, you know, the males are connecting better with it. And it could be the color of the product. You know, I was going to run a poll of a more female color and see if it changed anything. Or it could be that, you know, these images they didn't connect with and we need to fix them. And so we're working on that now to go through, and we're doing this before we launch the product. And this is something everybody should do. You should never launch a listing without polling your imagery. Images are one of the only ways, you know, to capture somebody's attention and set yourself apart from everybody else. And so if you don't poll and don't know, you know, how you're doing against your competitors, you're missing out.
Yeah, and you're flying
100%.
blind.
Yeah. So I don't if there's anything else you guys want to see within here, you know, you can go to each image stack. So B, you know, these guys did not do good at all. Let's see, hold on a second. Image stack B, you know, negative 20 votes, 0 or negative 3, negative 5, negative 5, negative 5, and you can go and find out what people like, what people don't. And sometimes you can identify an image that people really like from your competitors, and then you can kind of model your own imagery after something like that, or, you know, don't copy it, obviously, but you could have a similar format. And so we go through and we tag stuff like likes the testing or too much text, too wordy, you know, not useful. So I'm just making short comments from the people who are commenting on the polls, and then we'll gather that information into another document and figure out what we need to do to the imagery to fix it. So hopefully that is helpful to people, but we've really found this tool quite helpful.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Scott, you bring it up, right? Like we talked with a lot of different types of sellers, right? Big, small, been around for a long time, new to the game. And the one thing I think is really interesting about those conversations is how, not with you, right? But for those folks who are kind of newer to the Amazon game, how undervalued they consider getting the listing right before they get too far into launch. Because I was just going to say really quickly, because you know, you and I were just talking about this before the call. You're going to make an assessment on whether or not a product works or not based on the first 3 months, right?
Yep.
And if you've got a bad listing, that means you've got bad data. You don't know if the product's a failure. You just don't know. So, you know, for those folks, there's so many tools out there these days, and it's easy. The best practices are out there. This isn't, you know, rocket science anymore, and it's not super difficult to get access to, you know, mocked up shoppers to get input to find out like what's the way that I can put the best foot forward.
Yeah. And even for experienced sellers like us, like sometimes we forget the basics, right? Like sometimes we forget to poll. And, you know, and I've been preaching to my team, we got to poll. We're finally doing it, but it took a long time to you know, understand the value proposition of it and to understand that it is worth putting in those resources and money to make sure your listing is really good right out the gate, because, you know, you only have a certain amount of time to make a good impression within that honeymoon period. And so it's just, and it is vital to not set it and forget it. You know, I've got products that are 5 years old that we haven't touched the imagery, and I go back and look at it, I'm like, that's terrible. You know, like I've got 2 products that aren't selling at all right now, and they're summer items, and we have a ton of inventory. And, you know, we were looking at it today, we're like, well, no duh, why these aren't selling. The imagery is terrible. Our competitors' imagery is much better. And so even if you are able to rank and get visibility on it, you're not going to rank for long. You know, you're just going to slowly fall back down. If you can rank it at all. So
yeah, Yeah, I remember at last year's AMZ Innovate, right? There were two speakers that really stood out to me on this topic, and the first was Brian Kelsey. He actually did like a really deep dive on IntelliV. I mean, full top to bottom case study on the performance for a brand that he was doing some consulting for, and really showed the value. Really interesting to see their iterations too. They went through their first version of what their listing looked like all the way to their last one to be able to stand out, and then the performance was amazing. The other one was Aaron Cordovez, and he talked about not relying on friends and family, right? Like, I know there's going to be people listening to this podcast, and they're going to be thinking, well, that's fine, you know, but I don't need to go through and spend more money on these things. But the issue with friends and families, they freaking just lie to you. They just don't want to tell you anything that's negative or critical.
Yeah. Yep. And we're exploring other services too, you know, for user testing. And when I say user testing, I mean, we want to start getting our products into people's hands before we launch, at least the prototype versions, to validate the idea. And because we're usually just going within our own company and our own company's families, and it's just too biased. And so there's a company out there called usertesting.com, I believe. They do a ton of different stuff. You know, they do website optimization, SEO, user testing, website eye tracking. They do physical product testing and focus groups. It's not cheap. The pricing is an annual contract, and so you have to have a lot of stuff you want to test. But I think in today's game, if you don't do it, you're going to lose. You know, if you are not nearly perfect with your imagery, your value propositions, and how you manage your product, it's so competitive right now, and has been for a while, that it's just too important. You got to follow all of the steps to be successful. And that's what we're kind of learning right now is, what else can we do? What are the fine details that we need to refine to give ourselves a leg up against the competitors? And part of that is really understanding your transparency of what's happening with each of your products.
Yeah, and for
on
you,
a financial level.
Yeah, and I think for you, like the ROI is like a no-brainer, right? Like if you're investing $50K in tooling, and you're not going to invest an extra $2,000 to confirm that you've got your listing images dialed in, like you're gambling with that $50K.
Yeah, you are. And you know, luckily we've never spent a lot of money on tooling and failed. So knock on wood, we've been able to validate it enough and so like we have a product right now that is innovative, nothing like it on the market. Can't share the details quite yet because there's IP involved. The tooling cost on this product is probably about $65,000. And because this product doesn't exist on the market, and there's similar products that exist on Amazon, and the general category is big, and that's kind of how we found the full face snorkel mask. It's the exact same thing. The full face snorkel mask, when we first started selling it in 2015, there was nothing on Amazon. Maybe it was the brand that we bought, it was the factory we bought it from, their brand, but they were selling none. But we could see the general snorkel category was big. And so we're like, let's take a chance on this product. And we weren't spending money on tooling, right? This was just a private label product, so it was easier to do this on this one. But you know, because the volume was so strong in that category, and because the product was so innovative, the snorkel category hadn't been innovated on for decades, right? It was pretty much the same, you know, tube in your mouth. You know, they added the dry top so you could dive down, but other than that, you know, it wasn't super accessible, especially for people who, you know, have never been in the ocean before. And so this product, you know, made it snorkeling a lot more accessible. But going back to the new product we have in development that does have $65K in tooling costs, yeah, we need to validate that, you know, and we need to validate the people want it and would use it before we spend that. And so we're going to be doing focus groups. And I think actually one of the better ways to validate too is before you spend the money, you launch a Kickstarter. And that's what we did on our V2 mask. And I think we did about 550,000 on that Kickstarter back in, when was that? 2018, I think. And so that's a really good way to validate your product and to help pay for all your tooling costs as well. If you have an innovative, unique product, spend some money on putting a Kickstarter campaign together before you spend $65,000 on tooling and see how it goes. And we can do that with a prototype without having to tool up.
Yeah, that's great. We did, because I'm a seller too, and I've got two brands. I got one in automotive, the other was in toy storage. And when we started out the toy storage brand, our first product was toy bin, and it has an attached mat to it. But we didn't know what the product needed to look like. And, this is going to be a bigger investment for us to go into this new category and everything. And what we ended up doing, I wouldn't recommend anybody do it this particular way, but we didn't have a Facebook group and we didn't have any existing email addresses. If we had those two things, I would have used those first. But instead, what we did was we went to Craigslist, put a $50 Amazon gift card out there, and we ran them through a screener survey, which was like, where's the biggest pain point for cleaning up your home? Is it your garage? Is it your closet? Is it your kitchen? Or is it your playroom? And so anybody who answered playroom were people that we conceivably wanted to talk to.
Yeah. Smart.
And then we followed up with them and we did online. We just all over like Google Meet. It was really cheap, really easy. We talked to about 8 people. 5 of them were actually qualified. 3 of them were completely not. So about a $500 investment total, right?
Yeah.
And then, probably if we would do this again, the process would go a lot smoother for us. But total time creating the survey, taking notes, probably total like 16 working hours tops.
Yeah, that's super creative. Like that's super creative. And keep telling your story because I want to know what insights you got out of them and what you did to change your product.
Yeah, there were a couple things. So the first one we got was the tagline for the brand because it was a new brand, right? So it was like give your kids the world, and the brand's called Tell, Telle.
Okay.
And so we kind of went with like this German, European, kind of Swedish brand feel, and give your kids the world is great. Then the other thing that we ended up learning was what people cared about in their living room. So we were able to like make those like lifestyle connections, right? Everyone's talking about lifestyle image, but we were actually really able to make connections with people about what their pain points were. That kid clutter is a constant problem. They're constantly dealing with, kids and picking up their toys. That they want when they have adult time, they want the toys to go away and stay clean. But not everybody has a 5,000 square foot home, right? They maybe have like 2 rooms, 3 rooms where the adults are going to be staying. So they want to be able to do that. They wanted something that was good decor, right? It didn't look like, a clown or something in the middle of the living room. It actually fit within the regular decor. And then it needed to be stackable so they could get things out of the way for small spaces. And it's the funny thing is we showcased the existing products that were on the market, right? We had our own mock-up, and then we showed other products, and we're like, what do you like better? Which ones? They didn't know which one was ours. And we learned a ton through that process. So
did that experience help the product be successful for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like there's no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. The listing images got into it. The copy was there. The product design actually was modified slightly before we committed to the order with, because we just did prototypes and had them shipped over from China. Then we did the interviews and we're like, okay, let's pull the trigger on the design, made a small design change, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people get hung up on perfection, right? They want their product to be perfect before they launch it. It doesn't need to necessarily be perfect, but you have to have done enough research where you're confident that you're going to be able to hold a 4.5 stars at least. And so, if you don't do any of the stuff that you just said and that I've talked about, and you end up spending, 20 grand on a PO that ends up not working, you're just out 20 grand because it's really hard. If the product isn't right, it's almost impossible to sell it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, so my business partner is industrial designer, right, on the private label side. And the other thing that we're talking about doing is like, you can line this stuff up, right? You could do 3 products in 3 weeks to go figure out which 1 or 2 of those 3 are going to be the winners that you want to go for. Because you have limited capital right now. You can't just go do everything that you want to do, but take 3 ideas and run them against a focus group and keep the 2 that you like.
Yeah.
keep the three you like and just go after the top two, the ones that you
Yeah.
think are the biggest opportunity.
That's another service for you guys to offer is user testing or focus groups. Like you guys,
Yeah.
like there's a market there, and everything I've looked at is too expensive. So, one of the platforms was 40 grand a year.
Oh wow, no, and we do that, Scott. Just so you know, we
Well,
do
Scott,
actually offer it.
We'll offer ours to you for 38,000 a year right now.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, done. So I want to pivot for a second because just for the sake of time, I want to go into the subject of how much Amazon, how much other marketplaces, how much big box, what's the strategy? Is there an omni-channel strategy there? Because I know you started on Amazon. That's kind of what got you your break. So tell us a little bit about how much percentage of your sales are being put into other markets.
Okay, so a little backstory. So we started off in 2015 as a beach brand, right? So we started off selling snorkel masks and beach accessories, and we've since separated those two brands. Wildhorn is now the mountain sports brand, and Seaview is the beach brand. And oh crap, what was the question, Ian? Just lost my train of thought.
Other marketplaces other than Amazon.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. So the reason I'm telling you this is it took us a few years to kind of find our footing. And when we entered the ski market in 2017 or 18 is when we felt like we could start scaling other channels because the snorkel mask market just wasn't big enough, to be able to do much on the D2C side. And so on the Wildhorn side, we put a ton of focus on D2C, especially this last season. And, we're finally about 20% of our revenue is D2C now.
And for anybody who doesn't know the nomenclature, I just want to make sure people understand. So that's direct to consumer on your website.
Yeah. That's basically our Shopify website that Ian showed at the beginning of this. But man, it's a totally different beast than Amazon, and there's plenty of challenges that come with that. But it's been a goal of ours to really try to get off the Amazon crack because they just control too much. They control too much of your business, and so we're trying as hard as we can to get a portion of our sales off of Amazon. And Amazon's a big channel, and it's going to remain a big channel. But some of the strategies we've thought about is keeping our kind of mid-range products on Amazon and only featuring our premium products on our website. So they have, if they want the more premium stuff, it has a higher AOV. The metrics are easier to convert on because the acquisition cost is greater than Amazon. You're usually spending, I don't know, $20, $30 sometimes to acquire a customer. And so you have to have the margins. And when you're designing for Amazon, you're typically price sensitive, and we are too. Because we can't be over a certain price. We're not going to sell anything. But and so when you're designing for Amazon, your margins typically aren't acceptable for direct to consumer. They're too low. And so unless you have very high margin products, and your AOV also on direct to consumer it can't be $40 because of the cost of acquisition. You've got to have a $100, $150 AOV, depending on what you're selling, to make it work. And so direct to consumer is kind of a different dragon to slay, and you got to approach it a little bit differently than you do Amazon. So, and then we have some international distribution as well. We have international distribution. We have a few retail stores, but we're not. When I say we're in a couple of retail stores, but we're kind of building the brand up first before we see if that retail. Because again, retail is another completely different ball game that has its own unique set of challenges, and so we're scaling slowly. We want to next go try the European markets again, and that's another big area of growth that we want to do. But again, challenges there. You've got language barriers, you've got culture differences. So we're working our way up to scaling into Europe.
We lost you there for a second, Scott.
Where'd you lose me? What was I saying?
Cultural barriers, and then we lost you right after
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
5
So
seconds.
there's just cultural barriers and differences in how consumers shop. Like there's a lot of differences actually, like between Germans and Americans. So there's a lot of different ways to scale your business. You can scale with SKUs, you can scale with channels, and so we're trying to do both. But again, as Drew said, capital is limited. I wish we had unlimited capital, and especially now, capital markets have pulled back, and capital is harder to get than it was in 2021, 2022, and that kind of leads us into the transparency stuff on your products. Like, you have to know what products are performing and what products aren't, and there is a whole lot that goes into that. And using tools like Hello Profit or some of those are just not going to give you enough detail to know if your product is doing well. Like, we just had a keep kill thing, and we're probably killing 6 or 7 of our products because we can take that, including our apparel. So we have apparel we sell, and it's nice apparel, people like it, but with apparel you have return rates of sometimes up to 25%. And so if you have return rates up to 25%, what is, like, we looked at it, and like we spent maybe close to $750,000 on inventory, and the profit generated back from that capital outlay after all of the fees, after all of the returns, after the storage fees, was like 12%. And so wow. So you've got to know stuff like that, because now we're going to deploy that capital into a different product that can give us 30 or 40%. And there's differences. Some products you need as brand builders. Like, so we wanted to have apparel just to have apparel, but now we're kind of shifting our focus and saying, why are we selling apparel? Even the apparel we have is great, but that's really not our business. We're a ski accessory company. We're not an apparel company. And so, if I deploy that capital into 2 or 3 more goggle models, then I'm going to have a much better rate of return on my capital than apparel, and all of the hassle that comes with it too, the return hassle. There's just a lot of, I think once you factor in my team's time, we probably made no money on apparel, because of all the logistics and time it takes to bring that to life. And that's another thing on Amazon. That coat should sell for $199, but there just isn't the volume at that level on Amazon, because it's kind of becoming Alibaba, race to the bottom, cheapest price, 20,000 reviews on a $13 jacket. How's that gonna keep you warm or help you? And so we're just not gonna play those games anymore. We're gonna stay in our lane, stay where we're good, and cut products that don't meet the mix, and invest that capital into products that we know will.
That's great. So yeah, you're being much more data driven and not emotionally driven by like, oh my God, I really want to give this another try. You're just looking at the data and you're just cutting it, going, okay,
yeah,
data says we got to let it go.
Yeah.
So what was your big takeaway from 2022? I mean, we all learned a lot. It was kind of a weird year. What was your takeaway?
Our takeaway was, you have to be operationally extremely tight, and you have to have the financial transparency mechanisms in place to understand your business, because sellers I talk to, everyone's getting margin compressed. Amazon's fees are going up, storage fees are going up, FBA fees go up every year, and so we probably in the last 2 or 3 years lost 6 or 7% of margin because of Amazon's fees going up in various places, and they hide their fees all over the place. Like, most people probably don't know that when you have a refund or a return, Amazon only gives you back 80% of your commission fee, and they keep 20%, as a return service fee. And so, you just have, my biggest takeaway was, if you have the right financial transparency on a product level, then you can build out your KPIs and measurables to meet your goals. And so I have product managers that are in Argentina, right? And so we run on Traction or EOS, as our management system. And so we have what are called rocks, and they're the most important things in the quarter that you need to accomplish. And everyone has their own list of rocks. And so a rock could be successfully launch SV3 into the Amazon marketplace. And under that would be the measurables of how that is defined as being successful. And so if you have the tools available to your product managers, it empowers them to know what metrics they have to hit on a day by day and week by week basis. And it empowers them to make better informed decisions. And so until we had these transparency tools, we were flying blind. We didn't know, what the exact profit levels were for each product. Now we can look at things like, hey, this SKU has a crappy sell-through rate that's part of this parent. Let's lower the price by $10. And we've done this all the time. We see the whole listing get lifted up because it provides more sessions and lift to the listing. So I think that's my biggest takeaway is understanding the value of your capital, understanding how to deploy it, and having the financial transparency to make those correct decisions, if that makes sense.
Absolutely makes sense. And it's very insightful and helpful. And I hope people listen and they take note that they need to run their company with more data, more analytics. What can you learn more about your own company?
And I think it goes further, it goes further than that. Those are super important, but it's like, we just went through that EOS process. It's like the third time I've done it in my life. This time I led it as opposed to being a participant. And I've got it in front of me. I'm actually looking at ours right now, but like knowing what your core focus is super important. And the way that's phrased is like, what am I going to do? That's what core focus means. What am I going to do? But honestly, it's the other side of the coin that's more important. It's really, what am I not going to do? Which is probably the bigger, not getting caught up in the shiny object syndrome and all those things, and just really staying focused and just being kick-ass at that.
So the focus point is right on. Like if you're not laser focused and you get distracted by the bright and shiny object syndrome, it's bad news. And we as entrepreneurs are very good at doing that, right? We're very good at chasing that next interesting thing. And so, if you aren't laser focused on what your core business is and can get distracted, and then things kind of fall apart.
Yeah, totally. Because like everything falls down from there, right? Like your marketing plan, your channel strategy, your product selection, what you set up for your annual goals, your rocks, right? Your quarterly targets for your team. If you're constantly moving the goalposts for everybody, they become meaningless.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think that happens in a lot of teams, and it happens in my team. And so, that's another thing that we've tried to focus on is less of that and more focus. And again, back to the financial transparency stuff, like if you know what type of margins you need to hit, it makes picking a product simple. It either meets the company goals or does not, and you can keep or kill, right then. And so like we have a minimum, what we call our gross operating profit percentage or dollars. And that is your profit after your COGS, after your ad spend, after all of Amazon's fees, but doesn't include like your overhead or expenses, but does include Amazon fees and advertising. And so, we've set a certain percentage based on the gross operating profit that says if a product falls below this, we either have to fix it with image optimization or better organic visibility, or we have to kill it. And same goes for new product selection. So if we're looking at a product and it doesn't have the margins to support the business, it makes it an easier decision and allows you not to jump into a bad decision, right? Like, oh, we can probably make this work. And then you get in it and you're making, like our apparel, like if I had these transparency tools available with apparel before and really understood the effect of, it's really the return rate, on apparel. If you have 25% coming back, then that 25% that comes back, most of it is new because it just doesn't fit or they bought the wrong size or whatever. But then you incur another FBA fee, you incur another ad spend fee to sell that same product twice or three times or however many times it gets returned because it doesn't fit. And so we're just like, no more high return products. We can't have those because they're not profitable to the business and it doesn't use our capital efficiently.
Super insightful. I actually want to keep talking to you on a personal side about some of the things on the private label side of the business.
Yeah, very helpful.
I would be more than happy to talk, Drew. Let's just connect up again once I have a little bit more time. I have kind of a crazy meeting day today, but I'd be more than happy to discuss that.
Yeah, man, I can share some more details of how we implement that focus group stuff. Maybe you guys can.
Yeah, I'd love
to hear
that.
Your own. Yeah.
Craigslist still works, huh? Craigslist still around.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like we were on a don't use Craigslist. That's my point. Go to a Facebook group.
Don't
contact an admin.
Okay.
Go contact like an admin or something. You've got an existing customer list, right, from your D2C. You can just go say, hey, listen, we're offering $50 gift card, and your buyers are the right buyers, right? They've either already bought a bike product or a summer product or a ski product, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So for you're in a good spot to be able to just do this in-house.
Right. Yeah. I guess if you don't have any kind of customer base, Craigslist. Did you say you did it on Craigslist or you did it?
We didn't have a list, right? We would have ideally gone to even buying into a Facebook group through an admin saying, hey, listen, I'm a private labeler, blah, 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 whatever your story is. You have a whole bunch of moms in your Facebook group. I want to do a focus group. I'm willing to pay them. Would you mind advertising it? I'll give you some money to do that. We did not do that. We did Craigslist. Craigslist was fine for us, but I will just tell you, it's very noisy. It's very, very noisy. That screener survey, I could show you the list. It's 450 people clicking on free Amazon gift card, right?
Yeah.
Scott, I'm gonna reach out to you, and we're gonna figure out through Celica how we can create something using your products. Just to. I think this is an area people need help with. So let's talk offline. We'll figure out how we can put something together and test it out. Thanks for your time today, Scott. It's been really, really valuable data, and we'll talk soon.
I hope it wasn't too boring.
No, it's
not
great. Boring at all.
This is really great.
Important.
Yeah, this is going to help a lot of people, Scott. I really mean that. I mean, I know because the stuff that we were talking about was just it's very interesting topics, right? How do you be successful on Amazon? And it's not marketing, right? It's not PC necessarily. It's all.
Not all the data is sexy. It's just sometimes you have to get into the nitty gritty and talk about the stuff that people don't want to talk about, which is like polling and keyword data.
Right.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. I know. You just got to do it, or you're not going to win. So
that's right.
All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. All right. See you.
Thanks, Scott. Take care, man. See you.
Bye-bye.